So, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, getting on to the next main topic, which has been very interesting to see the developments of. In Nepal, the communist politicians have been, well, how do you say? They've just been hunting them down pretty much. So, got a couple of videos to go over now. It seems that the Nepalese government is somewhat collapsing alongside the French one and alongside the Japanese one. In Nepal, citizens went house to house to catch corrupt communist politicians. So here's some of the scenes that are coming out of Nepal at the moment, ladies and gentlemen. You might say they're quite Nepaling scenes. Nah, actually, no, there's a fair bit of schadenfreude in this, because who doesn't like to see a bunch of commie apparatchiks get a little bit of comeuppance, right? Here you go, coming on screen for you now, ladies and gentlemen. So it's not something you ever like to see. They've gone into the homes of one of these politicians. Notice, ladies and gentlemen, obviously, a lot of politicians, while you live in squalor, they live in like multi-story mansions. You know, it's just like rooftop pools and shit like that. Funny how that works, right? Funny how that works. They go on about taxing the rich, eating the rich, all while they're becoming the thing which they're supposedly taxing, not having to pay the taxes because they're collecting all the money from you, and they get to live in these mansions while you barely make ends meet. Right? That's socialism for you, and that's communism for you. But you can see here they've set the car on fire, they've torn the house apart, they've chucking the sofa off of the bloody roof onto the top of the car. You can't blame people for being angry. Obviously, this is stuff you never want to see. You never want to see this because it's indicative of a society that's falling apart, right? It's quite obvious that it's a society that's falling apart. Here's another video for you coming on screen in a moment for you, ladies and gentlemen, of the carnage that's going on in Nepal at the moment. There won't be any sound with this video, so I'm just going to talk over the top of it, but you can see here this video coming over the top. You see how angry people are, how much smoke there is, etc. You can't blame people for being angry when, again, the whole thing which you've forced them into is something that they never wanted. A lot of these people, obviously, or I would imagine at least, they're probably quite conservative in value. They probably want to own businesses. They probably want to just pay a reasonable amount of tax, you know, because there's certain elements that people have to take care of themselves, right? Good family structure, etc. Everything robbed and taken away from them by communists that odds are they voted for because they were lied to by them. And then, obviously, they don't have a democratic way to get out of it. You've seen similar scenes to this, maybe not on this scale, but in the UK from the judiciary around Southport and stuff like that, for example. Again, when you back people into corners in this way, when you take everything from them, you can't necessarily blame people for being angry. It's another video for you, ladies and gentlemen. They even set the parliament alight. So here's that video for you now. And the Nepalese parliament is literally burning, and I believe is burnt down, right? So here you go. Here's that on screen for you. So again, you can understand why people are angry. You can understand why people are angry. Odds are they either never voted for this, or again, they voted for it, but again, not realizing what they were voting themselves into. And then realizing, as is the case with every totalitarian system or communist system, they can't vote their way out of it. One slightly humorous thing that has happened from this, ladies and gentlemen, is I don't think they've actually been, I'll play this video for you now. This is not like a execution video, but you've got a video here. They've been throwing their politicians, if they can get their hands on them, into rivers and chasing them to rivers. Just be careful, make sure this video doesn't get pulled, because I can't really tell if the guy running to the river is naked or not. I don't think he is. But here's another video, ladies and gentlemen, of the people throwing their leaders into a river and then chasing them, seemingly at this point for sport. Seemingly at this point for sport. Is this just another example again of, fuck around, find out, fuck around with people's democratic rights and take everything from them and then find out? I don't know. But again, this is just what happens. Pardon me a moment, ladies and gentlemen. I think I'm about to sneeze. Ah, there we are. There was indeed a sneeze. But yeah, this is, I dare say this is going to be a more more of this is going to be coming down the pipeline because people are getting sick and tired of it, right? People are getting sick and tired of it. Could potentially be seeing similar situations in the UK if things keep up. Not necessarily that I want. You never want this kind of unrest because at the moment in the UK especially, it's going to be the exact kind of thing that they need, as in the government, to clamp down and bring in digital ID, which they're probably just going to be trying to do anyway, but it'll give them that extra false air of legitimacy, if you will, because it's not in any way legitimate. The government is completely illegitimate anyway. I have no mandate to do this or anything like that. David Lammy, the cervix whisperer, being the deputy prime minister of the UK is just truly disgusting. And the Home Secretary now being Shabana Mahmood, which, again, a foreign Muslim lady saying that, yes, they're going to secure the borders and yes, they're going to do this. It's Takia on full display. It's Takia on full display, doing hand in hand with the treasonous Labour government to take us over. Right, she likely sees it again as expanding the caliphate. That's how she's going to see it, right? But it'll be the exact thing in the UK at the moment, which will serve as an impetus to be like, nope, we need to crack down. We need to bring in digital ID now. Seems like they don't have that much concern about that in Nepal at the moment. So again, if it gets them out of the totalitarian system, if it gets them out from under the thumb of the communists that, again, will lecture them about, eating the rich and stuff like that, etc., all while taking everything from them, I'm not exactly feeling sorry. I'm not exactly feeling sorry for these apparatchiks. You know what I mean? I can only hope that, our government is next. I hope that our government is next and we actually get a government led by people of this country, people of our people, right, that will actually do good for us and actually be a legitimate government. So, another thing that's been happening, ladies and gentlemen, which obviously was the French Parliament has collapsed recently. And there's been riots on the streets of France, as you can imagine. The far left have begun attacking French riot police in front of the Ministry of the Interior today. Pardon me. The French militant far left has promised to block the country, quote unquote, with violent riots today. Here is some examples, or here is an example of this violent block the country unrest that's going on in France at the moment. Very scary scenes. So for those of you who are listening, not watching, ladies and gentlemen, you have many, many rioters throwing flares, throwing all manner of things. The wheelie bins that are used to dispose of rubbish, right? Throwing them at the police with shields and batons, right? But they're not exactly using them. They're not exactly like going for the rioters and trying to actually subdue them or anything like that. They're just more so trying to stop themselves from being hit. You have one rioter jumping up on top of a police car, trying to stamp the windshield in. Believe he was unsuccessful because I believe it was a reinforced windshield. Absolute carnage. There is rubbish everywhere, as you can imagine. Some of these bins are full of rubbish, right? So if this doesn't get cleaned, they're probably going to have a massive rat problem. Everybody pretty much dressed in black. Everybody covered head to toe in garb, right? Masks on, full on Antifa terrorists tearing up the streets of France. And this is truly awful. It's truly awful. It's when you have weak men in this instance, like Emmanuel Macron and all the rest of them, who make a coalition to avoid a government that will do the best thing for the French people. In Marine Le Pen, actively allying with communists, outright communists, to do that. This is what you get. And I just feel sorry for the regular French person. There's another video here, ladies and gentlemen, from freedomnews.tv, which I'll bring up on screen for you now as well. More of the unrest that can be observed. I believe this was a little bit later on in the day. But again, you can see they've torn the streets apart. It truly looks like something out of Sodom and Gomorrah, honestly. The biggest thing is you see here, ladies and gentlemen, they're throwing bottles at the window of what appears to be a shop or a bank or whatever. It's not just men, obviously. Women are involved in this as well in many instances. Obviously, Orwell observed in 1984 that women are some of the most, zealous party adherents, right? The most vigorous stampers out of unorthodoxy come in the form of women. The firing off fireworks, all manner of things, right? This is truly, truly chaos. They defacing monuments, the lot. Again, with people that think like this, with people that act like this, with all of these things, there can be no any kind of coexistence or anything like that. These whole people's idea, these whole people's purpose for living is to tear things down. Is the classic thing that whatever it is doesn't matter. All that matters is the revolution. You can't have a cohesive, peaceful, and civilized society with the only thing that's on people's mind at any given point for whatever reason, even though the exact people that these people believe that they are the revolutionaries, so to speak, the people that they support are in government, or at least they were in France's case. They're the ones with the power, but yet they feel as though they're constantly having to be in this state of revolution because that's all that matters to them. It doesn't matter what it is. It just matters that they're tearing down the system in some way. You can't have a society where people's whole shtick is to tear down the society. And you wonder why a lot of our communities look like shit, because we've internalized these things. So it's truly, truly awful. Truly, truly awful. And again, a lot of these people have no business being in France. A lot of these people are distinctly not French, right? A lot of the people in the Notting Hill Festival, for example, that glorious display of Caribbean and black culture, supposedly. The reality is none of those people have to be here. Or at least in instances, the, vast majority of them, because they're not of our people. One thing that is really scary, though, as well, ladies and gentlemen, is scary developments in Eastern Europe, is that, moving on to a slightly different topic now, during a nighttime violation of Polish airspace, this is from a War News PL account on X, more than 20, most likely estimates in this instance from this account comes at 23, Russian drones have been detected, in theory being suicide drones, and they were primarily fired upon by Dutch F-35s, but there's been American aircraft that was scrambled into Polish airspace. NATO is now involved as well. NATO is now involved because Poland actually invoked Article 4 of NATO in response to this, because they were tipped off by, I believe, Belarus that these drones were coming through Belarusian airspace and going to Poland. Very, very scary developments. Very, very scary developments. And it's always worth remembering that even if, you don't really like the conflict in Ukraine at the moment, due to various political motivations and stuff like that, and you don't like that, in many instances, right, I have nothing against the Ukrainian people. I have nothing against Ukraine. There's things that have to be addressed there with regards to, allegations of, human trafficking and the labs and stuff like that. Is all of those that need to be addressed there. But the people, again, like any other people on the planet, you want the best for them. You want the self-determination for them, right? You don't want them to be encroached by a imperialistic power that Putin is saying he wants to expand the Soviet Union, right? You don't want that. And Poland ended up invoking, as I said, Article 4 of NATO, which has basically brought everyone in for consultation. It's not like a war decree, and obviously many people, I think, would be against that purely because all of our nations, deliberately by our governments, have been besieged for generations, not just decades now. We're talking generations even. We're talking multiple decades, right? We want our problems taken care of first. A lot of people, I think the sentiment towards these wars and everything like that would be different if our government showed that they were willing to put us first. But they've shown that they are keen. Our governments are keen for the purposes of getting in people that will be more politically advantageous to them, of genocide by replacement. And so we need to deal with our own tyrannical governments first. And when we see that our own government is focused on bringing in people that are definitionally threats to our national security, en masse, using these people who are they're humans and have their moral value in their own right, but they are using them as political weapons. They are using them as numbers, as an overwhelming force, right? I said this in the last episode. So you're on about nationalists expressing nationalist sentiment. At least in many instances, they see just regular people of these other places as people. And in many instances, like I spoke about before with Josh Fernie, don't necessarily want anything bad to happen to those people, but we understand this is our home. We don't want these people in our homes, right? At least en masse, to the point where we become a minority and we have no voice anymore. This is the only home that we have. They potentially have several homes that they can go to, several home nations that they can go to potentially. When we see that our government is not acting in our own best interests first, it makes anybody trying to make the case for that we should be supporting these wars elsewhere in the world very, very difficult, because we should be taking care of our own problems first. We should be taking care of our own problems first. Apparently, there's been 12 Russian drones found in the Korytnica municipality. I got to be careful how I say that. Korytnica municipality in the Vegrau, however you say it, district. Been so many drones that have been found, ladies and gentlemen. And Donald Trump has said, allegedly, this was posted 20 minutes ago, what's the deal with Russia violating Polish airspace using drones? Let's get moving. So hopefully we will have a quick resolution to this, because this is a very scary situation. Very scary situation. Apparently today, Donald Trump is holding a conversation with President Naraki regarding the drones. But here's, I'll see if I can find an example of one that was flown in here. I thought I saved an image of one. Here's one example, ladies and gentlemen, in this field in, again, the Krzysztof Tworek. Oh, no, that's the mayor of Obracał. One of the drones fell in a field in the... I'm not even going to try and pronounce the names. I can't pronounce the names, and I'm sorry for any Polish people that I've offended watching this. I can't pronounce any of the names, but here's one of the drones that landed in the field, ladies and gentlemen. So again, very serious incident, because again, these were allegedly suicide drones that were flying over Polish airspace for some reason. Makes you think, what the hell is Putin up to? But again, we'll see what happens when Donald Trump holds the press conference with President Naraki today. Hopefully we can make some headway with regards to that. And here's a video as well, ladies and gentlemen, so you can see how serious it is. This was a video that came out of Poland, where Polish jets were using missiles to shoot down Russian suicide drones over Poland. So here's a video of that. So you can see here, that's the drone in the distance, I believe, and boom, you can see there, boom, they shot it down. So yeah, very, very scary stuff indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Very, very scary stuff indeed. I can only hope that this isn't going to be part of an escalation in that. Should imagine that our politicians, our treasonous politicians in this country are only going to be too keen to put boots on the ground, because again, it's more of our defense forces going away. It leaves our homeland all the more vulnerable as they introduce conscription and things like that. If, like I believe it's Article 5 of NATO that gets invoked, and then all of the other countries have to send their forces in, it's only going to make us all the more vulnerable with the foreign military force we already have inside our borders. And again, that's just the reality. Very, very unfortunate situation. I hope that it gets resolved very, very soon. If you enjoyed that clip, then make sure to go on over to the Voice of the Valleys X page at VOT_Valleys on X. We're also on Instagram at Voice of the Valleys. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, comment, all of that good stuff. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon. Godspeed.